Hey fellow developer, welcome back to Frankly Developing and our new Code Review series. I'm your host Frank, and today I'll look into getting an overview of what changes one might want to make on the code and give you some insights on my thought processes on how to select what to work on. We will continue from the previous video, so if you haven't watched it yet but want to, I'll leave you a card up here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you enjoy this sort of content. But now let's get started. So welcome back to our monster class. We already had this last time that we want to revisit this generate name description method. So let's start with this and add a new list of things you want to do. Kind of strange dot, right? So that's something you want to address potentially. It's looking kind of strange. Then let's start looking from the controller, the monster controller, and we can see something like, oh, monster manager.names. So it's loading the existing names of monsters, I guess, which probably means, yeah, there's some database context stuff going on, and it's retrieving some names from there. And that is a static method on a manager class, so that doesn't look very good to me because manager classes are really problematic. They often tend to grow. So let's just clear what we need with these static methods, like update, saving it, okay, and then names. And it sounds like the manager should also do the rest then. Why doesn't it create the monster as well and does all of that and hides it from us? Because now we have to retrieve it, get it back in. So this would be like a violation of the tell and ask principle here, which you could improve upon. Then there's this new monster, and the generate name description is modifying it. So initially you create a monster, but then it's kind of uninitialized and needs something else, which is always like the danger of someone else not knowing about this, doing only one thing. It's kind of odd. Now, when you look into this one here, there's again, we mentioned this problem with this splitting, and this initialization is kind of strange. There's a console write line here. Oh, that's right, another reason. So we want to replace write lines usually with something like a logging framework that gives us much more granularity, much more separation of concerns, really. That's the basis here. We want to do and be able to influence all of these loggings. And then there's the cohere manager here, and this is like hard-coded inside of the monster class again. So yeah, we already have this on our list, but it's kind of odd that the monster class, which is like an entity framework database stored class, now has logic in there that also includes something like cohere manager in a hard-coupled way like this. It's kind of odd. And particularly with the current LLMs, you maybe not want to fix this onto one single thing, so this might be something that you want to have extensible as well. But this, like, hard-coded is not a really good place to be in at this point. You can see there was some two-string stuff going on here. Small warnings in there on code cleanup, so that's always something you could add to the list, of course. But these are no longer warnings on a compiler level, so more on the IDE level. And usually, if you don't take care of these very, very early on, there will be way too many in your project to really finish that kind of refactoring task. But that would be like a nice list of starting points. You can see something like outdated constructs here, as the writer's already complaining about this. And then there's this whole nullability things, so that might be something else to visit. Lots of places seem to use nulls where they probably shouldn't. That will be some initial things that we could do. The audit manager, that seems pretty straightforward. Cohere manager as well. There's something like cohere AI. Again, it's really annoying to have this hard-coded here and limited. There's a save changes. Okay, that seems to do a lot of complicated stuff, really. Could simplify that, most likely. Initialization. And here's a lot of logic as well, which is initializing monsters. So starts with 10 monsters. Again, hard-coded cohere manager references in here. Same generation of the monsters. Now it's looking at the validity of the cohere manager here. Do you notice the difference? So this is creating the monster, and only if there is a valid cohere manager is it generating something, whereas the controller does not have that check. That's what happens if you don't combine this into a proper object and you allow everyone to do it on their own. You get two different ways of doing it. And eventually you save those changes. Okay, so it's a very small project. It's a pretty simple thing. The initialization only is there. Yeah, all good so far. The monster manager, again, there's some stuff. There's obviously commented out code which we could remove. Just using a link queue expression to find these. Again, the nullability, all the using contexts, but otherwise that doesn't look all that much in need of work. So now we have this little list here. Let's take a look at like prioritizing these. Now we could refactor this method and clean that up, which sounds like a kind of good idea, but it's more like that the monster class. Take a look at this. It's also interacting with this cohere manager, so maybe fixing that one will automatically improve the other one as well, so we might place that one higher. And that also has a big nice feature that we might be interested in, as in supporting other LLMs and making that easier to do at least. The monster manager, similar thing. Writeline and logger, something we have to look at. We could add to this one something like revisiting exceptional general error handling. And the cleanup for the warnings is something like you can always do, which is probably very, very low in the list. Like 4, 5, and 6 you could probably switch around as you want. Generate name description doesn't really work together with the monster manager, right? So it's at the moment the most risky and strange and problematic code that we could see. That's why I'm leaving it a little bit higher than the others. And now, how do you work on these in general and decide which one you want to go for? That is the really interesting. So that was it for today on finding potential targets for refactoring. But it's important to keep in mind that you would not prioritize them like I just did in your real work. Instead, you want to take a look at which of those changes will help you towards your next goal. We are going to make it easier to replace the LLM being used, but that may not be a goal you want in your project at all. Generally, my advice on refactorings is to never do them for their own purpose. I'm doing that in this video series for instructional purposes. But on a real project, you have real work to get done, and the refactoring should help you towards that. Other decisions may depend on the state of your project. For example, looking at error handling may be less important in an early proof of concept stage, or massively important before going live. I hope you enjoyed this episode on selecting refactoring targets, which is pretty much the same as finding places in your code that aren't as good as you would like them to be. Again, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this series, so let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, have fun developing.